Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into today's broadcast. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Sonia Keeve, and I am the CEO and founder of Sisters with a Voice Podcast Network, where I help women entrepreneurs get unstuck from thinking about starting a podcast to building, launching, and monetizing a podcast in just 30 days. And so we are going to talk about 5 ways to convert a podcast for content gold. Yes, this is what I really want to talk about because I have met so many people who have launched podcasts and they're not really utilizing the full power of their podcast episodes. You have heard me talk about how you can take that written content and turn it into a podcast episode. Well, today we're going to flip it and we're going to talk about you've got that podcast show and you need to create additional content for your business. Well, this is something you definitely want to tune into. And so, for those that are tuning in and catching this live, hello all around the world, wherever you are tuning in. And for those that will catch this in a replay, welcome to this broadcast. And so, as we talk about these 5 ways to convert a podcast to content gold, there is so many ways to do this and do it effectively where you are creating value every time you open your mouth. And for those again who also are considering a podcast, I definitely want you to take notes because this is going to be some really great and juicy information. And so, for those that are tuning in, again, this is Sonia Keeve, CEO and founder of Sisters with a Voice Podcast Network. And we're talking about 5 ways, just 5 ways to convert your podcast episode into content gold. And the first thing that you want to consider is your key takeaways from your podcast episode. You can take those key takeaways that you shared, whether as a solo style podcaster, you were sharing some key takeaways around your topic. Take those key takeaways that you discussed on your show and convert it into an actual blog post. So if you have considered wanting to blog and figuring out, well, how can I do this and be consistent with it? Taking your podcast episodes and taking those key takeaways from an episode, you can now convert those into actual blog posts. And this is a great way because guess what? You already have the expertise that you've been sharing. And the same goes true for those that you interview to be on your show. So you can take those key takeaways and you can actually create your own blog posts. The second tip on how you can convert a podcast to content gold is taking those tips and create an infographic. I am a big content creator inside of Canva. So you could use Canva, which has a free option, and you can create an infographic using the tips from your topic that you shared on your podcast episode. So it's super easy. Just listen to that, pick one of your episodes where you actually gave some free tips, right? Because many times on podcast shows, as people are tuning in, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for tips or resources to help them take it to the next level, right? So go back to your episodes and find where you shared some tips on a particular topic and now create an actual infographic. And you can do that right inside of Canva and create a beautiful graphic that shares your content. And guess what? This helps you to be seen and get visible and to start being known as the thought leader or guru in your industry. The third tip to turning your podcast episode into content gold Take a highlight clip from your show and turn it into an audiogram. I absolutely love audiograms. They are so invitive, and they really, what they do is they really, entice the listener to tune in to hear more. And it's not very long. The audiogram is super short, but it's super impactful. So take a highlight clip from your podcast episode and turn it into an actual audiogram. I know if you haven't thought about these things, I know that right now your mind is blown, or you're probably going, hmm, that sounds really, really good. So, the fourth tip to help you create your podcast episodes and converting them into content gold, those juicy nuggets, those wisdom nuggets, as I like to say, or those juicy tidbits. You can take all of those golden nuggets, those juicy tidbits, and you can create an email series. So if you don't already have an email list and you're like figuring out, how can I create an email list? This gives you an opportunity to start your email list. And so you take those golden nuggets and tidbits from your actual podcast episodes and create an email series. That is super valuable. And that's how many entrepreneurs or business owners are letting and keeping their audience in the know through those emails, right? So you can create your own email series, just taking that episode where you had some really good nuggets, juicy tidbits. Because I know sometimes when I'm listening to podcast shows, I may not always be in an area where I can write down those juicy tidbits, right? And so now, for those that missed it or didn't tune in and missed those tidbits, guess what? You can now present to your clients or your potential audience an email series where you break down those golden nuggets and you create that email series. And the fifth way to create your podcast episodes and turning them into content gold is take those episodes and create a video series. You've heard me many times before tell you, with a podcast, you can do it audio or video. So most podcasts, while you may have an audio style type of podcast, you can flip that thing and take that episode and now create a video series with it. This is also super helpful when you have a topic that maybe you have broken down into parts, right? There was a part 1, a part 2, a part 3, or part 4 to that podcast episode. Guess what? Each of those podcast episodes are now turned into an actual video series. So just to recap, I mean, this is great information. Just to recap for those that will catch this in a replay, my name is Sonia Keefe, CEO and founder of Sisters with a Voice Podcast Network. And I help women entrepreneurs to get unstuck from thinking about starting a podcast to building, launching, and monetizing a podcast in just 30 days. And so today we're talking about 5 ways to convert a podcast episode into content gold. So if you have a podcast and you're trying to think, how can I continue to grow this show? How can I get more people engaged in my podcast? I'm running out of content ideas. Here's 5 juicy ways you can do that. The first way is from your podcast episodes, those key takeaways that you shared on your show. You can take those key takeaways and now convert it into a blog post. The second way is if you offered some tips on one of your podcast episodes, take those tips and go inside of Canva and guess what? Create an infographic that just highlights those tips that you shared on your podcast show. Next level down, take a highlight clip from your podcast episode and turn it into an audiogram. Audiograms are super fun and really creative when you do it right. So take a highlight from your actual podcast episodes and turn it into an actual audiogram. Fourth way that you can take your podcast episode and turn it into content gold, those juicy nuggets, those juicy tidbits. I share them all the time on my show. I have my guests many times that will share those juicy tidbits. And if you're not somewhere where you could write those tidbits down, guess what? You can create an email series. So this is a great way to start your email marketing. So you can take those golden nuggets and juicy tidbits and turn it into an email series. And then lastly, you can take an episode, especially if there was a topic where you had to break it down in parts, like a part 1, 2, 3, etc. Now you can take those episodes and create a video series for your customers and your clients. So I hope that these 5 takeaways really help you to see the power of what podcasting and having a podcasting can do. Your podcast is content gold for your business, but you don't have that if you haven't started a podcast. And so I want to definitely invite you to join me for Podcasters Rock Conference 2022 for women in business. So if you have a podcast or you desire to have a podcast, or you simply are saying, Sonia, what is a podcast? Tell me more. This conference is for you. This conference is not just for women. So fellas, if you desire to have a podcast, I absolutely want you to be in the place too. But because most of my audience is women, that's who I am really wanting to come to this conference. But I'm definitely not shading the guys in any way. So definitely come to Podcasters Rock Conference 2022 for women in business. And it's going to be held November 18th and 19th at the Hampton Inn and Suites in the beautiful city of Fredericksburg, Virginia. And so this conference is going to help you just elevate, grow, monetize your podcast, and it will help you grow and elevate your business. And so if you want more information on how you can get your tickets, simply go to the website bit.ly/Podcastersrock Rock 2022, all one word, all lowercase, and you'll get your tickets today. Time is running out for the early bird tickets. We have some VIP tickets still left, but the early bird tickets are definitely running out. So you want to make sure that you get your ticket today. So I hope that you really enjoyed today's conference. Well, today's talk really on 5 ways you can convert a podcast episode into content gold. So let me know in the comments, how would you use your podcast, or how do you use it today? And do you use any of the 5 tips that we shared today? I would love to know and connect with you more. So thank you so much for watching this broadcast. My name is Sonia Keeve, CEO and founder of Sisters with the Voice Podcast Network, helping women entrepreneurs every single day get unstuck from thinking about starting a podcast to building, launching, and monetizing a podcast in just 30 days. Take care, and I will see you next time.